is now the king over all people. Now, if we were to look at Matthew's gospel as a whole, and again, it's not a Bible study, we're not going too deep. Matthew's gospel tells us that Jesus is the new Moses. What? Here's how. The first 5 books of the Old Testament, Genesis through Deuteronomy, contain what we know as the law that Jesus refers to a lot. In the Gospel of Matthew, there are 5 main teaching sections of Jesus. Moses, when he went to go get the 10 Commandments, went up a what? A mountain. If you go to the first teaching of Jesus in the Gospel of Matthew, which is chapters 5 through 7, it's known as the Sermon on the... Not by accident. These same words that Jesus says in Matthew 5 through 7, the Sermon on the Mount, Luke also uses those words, except in Luke he calls it the Sermon on the Plain. Same words, but in Matthew Jesus is on the mountain. In Luke he's not. That's not an accident. In the beginning of Matthew's gospel, Jesus is established as having authority. If you remember, Moses spent how many years in the wilderness with God's people? 40. How many days was Moses on Mount Sinai receiving the 10 Commandments? 40. How many days was Jesus in the wilderness being tested by the Holy Spirit? Not an accident. That number 40 is important. It represents a season of transformation. Jesus is given authority to be the son of Abraham, the son of David, and ultimately the Son of God. And at the end of Matthew's gospel, Jesus says in chapter 28 that we now have authority. So Jesus claims authority. In chapter 28, Jesus says, now you have authority. Go and make disciples of some nations, no, all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, which we'll do this morning, and teaching them to obey everything that I have commanded you. Jesus claims authority, and he passes it to us and says, now you do. Go and make disciples. The main theme of Matthew's gospel is fulfillment, and it begins with this genealogy. Throughout Matthew's gospel, there are about 250 references to the Old Testament, more than any other gospel. Matthew is clear. Jesus is the fulfillment of all of these prophecies. Jesus makes it clear in the Sermon on the Mount when he says, I came not to abolish the law, but to fulfill it. Matthew wants to make sure we don't miss the point that Jesus is the promised Messiah. Now, we could go much further, but we won't today. Each of us have a beginning, and each of us will have an end. All of our identities are, at least in part, tied to those who have gone before us. Their experiences have led to our experiences. Where they were born, where they settled, have all led to where we were born. Their personalities are, at least in part, our personalities. And so it is with generations that will follow us. When they trace their family trees 300 or 400 years from now, you and I will show up on them and be a part of who they are. I posted a question on Facebook the other day, which got some really interesting responses. They always do. I asked people, if you have researched your own family tree, what were you hoping to find, and what did you find?